Fanatec and Porsche have had a long partnership, and this new Vision GT wheel is the latest product that both German brands have collaborated on. This wheel is a replica of the steering wheel found in the Porsche Vision GT, a concept car designed solely for Gran Turismo 7. It also marks the first complete steering wheel that Fanatec has launched since its acquisition by Corsair. And no, I'm not counting the Club Sport GT3 Endurance, as that was just a wheel rim for the older podium button module. So does this wheel pave the way for a refreshed Fanatec in 2025? I've been racing with it for a while now, thanks to Fanatec for sending it over for this review, so I'm about to find out. When you jump into the unboxing, you're hit with the usual quotes that Fanatec ships with all of its products. You get a nice Porsche branded slip, which contains the quick start guide and a few stickers, and then you've got the wheel itself. This is a simple, stripped back unboxing compared to many products that ship with sticker sheets and numerous mounting hardware, but it's all you really need. The wheel comes equipped with the QR2 Lite, and this isn't ideal, as at this price point I'd have hoped for a full QR2. But being a CSL product, it only gets the plastic light version as standard, although there are no torque restrictions in place, meaning when using it with the Club Sport DD Plus wheelbase that I'm going to be testing it with, we can still dial the force feedback all the way up. To get your hands on this Vision GT wheel, it's going to cost you €350 or $440. That positions it as the most expensive CSL steering wheel that Fanatec offers, and I think a lot of this is probably due to the Porsche branding. The Vision GT wheel itself does feature a nice design, but is pretty heavy on the plastic throughout. Compared to other wheels, you've got the Club Sport Formula V 2.5X, which sits just €20 more expensive than this, and that comes with a full metal QR2, carbon fibre across the front, and an overall more premium feel. And that brings me on to the overall design of this wheel, because on first glance, I absolutely love the look of this wheel. It's modern, futuristic, and other than the eerily similar MOZA Vision GS wheel, we haven't seen many steering wheels that look like this. This is a 310mm wheel that was designed really for the Porsche Vision GT concept car and GT7. The rectangular shape and 310mm diameter does make it ideal for GT or prototype racing, and is a little bit on the large side for a Formula wheel. Across the face of the wheel itself, you'll find 6 push buttons on the main body and an additional 2 buttons built into the hand grips. These buttons on the wheel are incredibly small, at probably around 50% the size of a traditional push button. Small grooves do separate each button, but they're not raised enough to act as a shroud or an indicator showing you which button you're pressing. I have on a few occasions actually pressed the wrong button on track, as there really is no guide for your thumb to follow. The buttons themselves have a small and very acceptable amount of wobble and a nice short throw with a good amount of resistance. The hand grip buttons also have a similar resistance and feel really nice to interact with. Also, for a little bit of fun, Fanatec turned the Porsche logo in the centre of the wheel into a push button which controls the tune-in menu. It's quirky and I rather like it. Along with the buttons, you get a good number of encoders. In fact, you get more rotary encoders on this wheel than you do with any other Fanatec wheel to date. There are 4 thumb encoders, 2 right next to your thumb position and 2 much lower down, which actually does require you to take your hand off the wheel to interact with. And the position of these lower encoders isn't ideal. I'd have much preferred them raised up and sort of around where the 2 push buttons are positioned. However, being a replica, Fanatec has stuck to Porsche's vision. These encoders are probably among the better ones that Fanatec has integrated. They offer much more resistance than the encoders found on my Formula V 2.5X wheel, which is a good thing, and the textured grip makes them incredibly comfy to use. The lower 2 front-facing encoders feel excellent and can function as encoders or a 12-position multi-position switches, although the plastic construction is a bit of a downer. A flash of metal trim here would have really increased the premium look a lot. You've also got the usual 7-way funky switch, which this time around features a large circular plate. This is Fanatec's way to get their branding onto the wheel, however it does introduce a lot of wiggle during use. This switch can be rotated, clicked in, or used as directional inputs. The rotation feature in particular features very low resistance compared to Fanatec's usual funky switches. The resistance is so low that you can pretty easily activate the rotation input by mistake when trying to use a directional input. On the right of the wheel, mirroring the funky switch, is an OLED display. It's crisp and sharp as you'd expect from an OLED, but it's really not very bright. It's there to display, say, live gear, your speed telemetry, and it can also be used to change the wheelbase settings in the tuning menu. Again, no fault of Fanatec, but its position is weirdly low to actually be that effective. Essentially, it's out of your line of sight when looking at the track, and you have to make a conscious effort to look down and actually view your gear. On the reverse of the wheel, along with the plastic quick release, are two shifters that Fanatec states are custom designed for this wheel. They're one of the few metal parts on the wheel itself and actually feel really nice to interact with. There's no play at all in the shifters, and the throw is incredibly short. You'll also find a superb amount of resistance, so you will never ever accidentally pull a shift you didn't mean to. There is only one small downside to these shifters, and that is that they're really quite loud. This is really apparent when comparing them to the Fanatec Formula V2.5X wheel, which again is only €20 more expensive than this one. Now, the Porsche Vision GT wheel sits within Fanatec's CSL range of products, and upon inspection, you can tell why. Plastic makes up almost every part of the wheel you interact with, other than a few key areas. Internally, there is a cast aluminium chassis which ensures this wheel remains rigid, even at higher torque levels. However, it is such a shame that none of that aluminium is on show. The only full metal elements visible are the two shifters on the rear of the wheel, the centre line at the top, and the Porsche emblem on the front. Wrapping the entire hand grip is a new material that Fanatec call Tactaris. This is a microfiber synthetic suede material that doesn't feel too dissimilar to real Alcantara. Fanatec states that it's more durable than Alcantara, fixing one of the biggest issues that an Alcantara wheel does have, and that's the wear. It's more resistant to sweat if you race without gloves, while keeping the same soft touch feel and motorsport style appearance. Time will tell how durable these hand grips are, but having raced with it for around a week solid, I can see virtually zero wear on my wheel. I do also love the inclusion of this Tactaris material on the centre element. Wrapping this otherwise big dome of plastic in Tactaris elevates the design and adds a small premium flair that much of the wheel is missing. Now, I do have to mention the quick release. Fanatec has chosen the QR2 Lite for this wheel, and I presume it's due to it being branded a CSL product. This is a plastic quick release, although Fanatec has removed all torque restrictions. This means you can use it with the more powerful Club Sport DD and DD Plus wheelbases and make use of the full 4-speed back strength. I'm using the DD Plus, and I was testing this wheel in Assetto Corsa Evo, ACC and iRacing with the 4-speed back turned all the way up. And you can see from this footage there really isn't too much movement. I would much rather see Fanatec just ship all wheels with the QR2 as standard. The good news though is that you should be able to spec the normal QR2 at the point of buying, much like you can with other Fanatec products, although it will add a little bit of cost to the wheel. Now, Fanatec runs all software adjustments through its control panel on PC. To use the Vision GT wheel, you have to update the firmware, which is handled within the control panel itself. And I'm pretty sure this step isn't required when racing on PlayStation. However, I haven't tested this as I'm only using a PC. There aren't really many adjustments available through the software for the wheel specifically. You can change all of your 4-speed back settings from your wheelbase using the control panel or the tune-in menu on the wheel. The only wheel-related adjustments available are wheel sensitivity, which is a wheelbase setting anyway, and the behaviour of the multi-position switches on the front of the wheel. Now, on the track, the Vision GT wheel performs admirably. The whole wheel is incredibly lightweight, and this allows it to dance around a lot, helping you feel every small bit of 4-speed back detail. Using the inputs is a joy, with everything tuned pretty perfectly. Normally, a steering wheel always has 1 or 2 inputs that feel a little bit off, but not with this wheel. Everything's configured nicely, with the only real issue being the ever so small push buttons, which still just feels a little bit strange even after racing with it for a little while. The lack of stickers for the inputs or customizable LEDs is a bit of a shame, as you then have to remember what you've configured every input to do in-game with no visual reference. Over time, it shouldn't matter hugely as muscle memory should kick in. The hand grips are incredibly comfy when racing without gloves, and the smooth circular shape is easy to hold. I did struggle a little bit with my thumb comfort for a while though, as the position where the chassis meets the hand grips is a dead straight line. The side of my thumbs were positioned right on top of this plastic chassis, and they were really used as a leverage point for when I had high force feedback. I would have much preferred some sort of contoured section right at this joint for my thumbs to slot into, so they wouldn't hurt when I finished sim racing. Another small issue is with the overall design of the wheel. The squared off top where the hand grip wraps up and over does block a lot of the on-screen dash. You can't really see through it like you would with a circular wheel, meaning you have to look up and over it to see your dash. When racing GT cars, for example, it's important to see this so you can view tyre temperatures and which TC and ABS configuration you're currently in. Time after time I had to peer up and over to see some certain key information. So ultimately, was this new Fanatec Vision GT wheel worth the wait, and is it worth buying? Well, my first impressions of this Vision GT wheel were incredibly positive. I love the design with the futuristic concept car style elements and the big and bold Porsche logo. The Tactaris hand grips feel really nice to race with, and so far they've been pretty durable. On the not so great side, there is a ton of plastic, including the quick release, and that's just too much for my liking on a €350 or $440 steering wheel. The shifters are incredibly loud, and the design of the small push buttons and low down encoders isn't conducive to an overly ergonomic wheel, despite the inputs themselves actually feeling really nice and tactile to use. However, I've got to cut Fanatec a bit of a break here, as this is not their fault, as they've just accurately reproduced the design and the inputs from the real wheel. Overall, this is a really pretty and fun to use budget licensed steering wheel, falling in a similar category to the SF1000 from Thrustmaster. The appearance is great, and Fanatec has nailed it with the feel of all mechanical elements. But despite its good looks, I do believe the price is a little bit steep, and the obvious budget control in certain areas has led to some limitations. With a few very small improvements such as better noise dampening on the shifters, a few premium metal flourishes throughout, a brighter OLED display, and other small refinements here and there, this wheel could have been a must buy and a true return to form. Despite this, the Vision GT wheel is a refreshing new product, and it's also good to see Fanatec releasing new hardware and seemingly starting fresh in 2025.